today I would come into the jungle, which is the cat boarding facility that I have over here at the spa, and we would talk a little bit about kitties, because I spend a lot of time talking about dogs and I don't want to leave out our cats, and I love cats, and that's why I have the jungle. So, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is diet, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about diet. So I know I do a lot of how-to videos, so I'm going to talk today about how to transition your kitty from a kibble to a raw diet. Or doesn't necessarily have to be raw, meaning uncooked, but more importantly, transitioning your kitty off a kibble and onto a species-appropriate diet. So let's first talk a little bit about why it's important to be feeding our cats a species-appropriate diet. So one of the things why it's hard to do, right? It seems like if you took a carnivore and you were feeding him carbohydrates and you wanted to switch him over to a species-appropriate diet, it should be very simple and easy, and you just put the food down and they should eat it. That's what most of us think until we have a cat that we decide we want to do this with. And it's a very interesting little phenomenon that happens, but just like people, animals can become addicted to things. And cats become addicted to kibble very easily. Why do they become addicted to it? They become addicted to it because of two possible reasons. One is it has a lot of sugar in the food, which most kibble is going to be loaded in carbohydrate, which turns to sugar, and then that's how it's processed. And it becomes very addicting, and so they want to eat it. The other reason is sometimes cat food has stuff in it called MSG, and a lot of times that is found on your label as natural flavorings. And so people read it and they think they're feeding their cat something that's a natural flavor, which of course sounds like something we would all want to feed our cats, right? But a lot of times the research I have done by calling companies, and I had to really try hard to find out what was in it. And what I found is a lot of those natural flavorings have MSG, and MSG is addicting. So you get animals much like a heroin addict on the streets, right? If you went up to a heroin addict and said, I can give you food or I can give you heroin, they'll take the heroin. And that's because their brain is telling them that's how they survive. Well, your cat is doing the same thing. My brain is telling me that survival is this food and not that food. And we've switched that on them because in nature, cats survive on protein. They survive on, they're true carnivores, unlike dogs who are actually not full carnivores, but your cat is. And so what they need to survive is meat and protein, and good proteins and fats when they hunt and they kill. So what happened? Well, somewhere along the line, marketing companies came on board and started telling us that it was super important that our cats eat a balanced diet. And I do it like this, and we can all make fun of it, but what is a balanced diet? So that's a really interesting thing, because who came up with that? Well, there are some studies and there are some organizations that come up with what a balanced diet is. Now, I think it's important, very important, that our animals eat food that supplies everything that they need, meaning a balanced diet. But I think that you can get balance through rotation and giving proper proteins and proper fats, and it doesn't necessarily need to have synthetic vitamins and minerals added into it. However, that's what happens. When our kibble companies hit the market, they add a lot of synthetic vitamins and minerals in order to make the food balanced, because it's really hard to get certain things from foods that are available, and so especially when it's been cooked out. So when they do kibble and they cook the kibble, they lose a lot of the nutrients, so they need to put it back in. Now, I know that a lot of you have probably heard from your veterinarians that a raw diet is a horrible diet. And I'm not really speaking to you, I'm not here to try to convince you to go to a raw diet. I've been doing this long enough that I know that that's not something that I want to do. I will educate people on a raw diet, but that's not really what I'm here to do. So who I am speaking to today is people who are already kind of thinking about doing it and struggling to do it and can't quite figure out why their cat won't eat a species-appropriate diet. So let's talk a little bit about some tricks and things that you can do in order to get them to eat it. And this depends on how far you want to go. If you want to do a whole prey diet, if you're thinking about, there's different variations of a species-appropriate diet. There's home-prepared diets that people do that with organ meat and ground up or muscle meat, those kind of things are in there, and then they might add in some veggies and stuff, which you don't really need to do for your kitties. But some people like to do that, or some bone broth, or some fish stocks and things like that. But if you're going to be feeding your kitty, you can do, like I said, there's some variations. You can do whole prey, which is actually going to be like duck heads and all sorts of that kind of thing, which can get a little bit crazy. But either way, whether you decide to do a commercial diet, a home diet, a whole prey diet, you still are going to need to figure out how you're going to get this cat. Now, if you have a kitten, you're very lucky because kittens are usually pretty easy to get them onto. Once, if they're old enough, you can start transitioning from their mother onto, I will say start with a canned food and then we work them up into a species appropriate diet. But if you have an old cat or an older cat that has decided that they just want to eat their kibble, then you're going to have to do some tricks. So the first thing you need to know is that you do not want to try to give a cat cold food out of the refrigerator. Because when they hunt and eat, kitty, 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 when they hunt and eat, she wants to get in, but not in the camera. She just wants to talk behind the scenes. Tell me what to do. So if you have a cat and you're going to do a commercial diet and it comes in the freezer section of your natural pet stores that I know that you guys are shopping at, your little independent mom and pop shops that are going to help educate you on this. So hopefully you're doing that. But it'll come in your freezer section. And so sometimes people think, oh, I'm just going to take this out of the freezer and then I'll just give it to my cat frozen. You don't want to do that. Don't ever attempt to give a cat frozen food or even really cold food because they generally won't eat it. And then people think they don't like it. So then the next thing people do a lot of times is they think, oh, I'm just going to pop it in the microwave because I forgot to take it out. The problem with that is if you do a species appropriate raw commercial diet that has bone in it, then you could be cooking the bone, not to mention you're cooking away what you were intending to do with that raw diet. So you don't want to microwave it. Don't do that. You just want to make sure that you take the food out of the freezer and leave it in your refrigerator for a day or two till it thaws out. And then, with my animals, my cat, my dog, I'll take it out and I'll set it on the counter. It's going to be fine out on the counter for a few hours till it gets up to room temperature. But you definitely want to make sure when you're transitioning your kitty that it's at room temperature. Then the next thing you want to do is if your cat has been eating kibble for a long period of time, it's going to be really difficult. So you want to do little tiny bit at a time. So you want to wait till your kitty is coming to you, she's hungry, she wants to eat, and then you want to prepare her old food, and you're going to need to put little tiny bits in at a time. You need to trick her. And then slowly take it away, just like we would slowly take the heroin away from the heroin addict. We're slowly going to be pulling it, and I want you to think of it in terms of that. Because kibble is so detrimental to your cat's health, I want you to think in terms of you are removing the heroin from your cat, so to speak, to try to get them on a healthier diet. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you do need to do some tricks and little things that you need to do. And don't give up. You don't want to give up. You want to try different protein sources that they might like, different textures. Cats are very texture oriented. So if you've seen those canned foods, most cat people will know they don't like pate, but they like this kind, and they don't like that kind, and they'll eat duck in this kind and that kind. The same thing can happen with your raw foods. It can be a different texture for them, so you want to pay close attention and maybe go to your mom and pop little pet stores that have these species appropriate diets and ask them if they can give you samples of a whole bunch of different stuff. So if you were to get a little sample that's maybe this big, I would for the next week try to pick off little pieces of it until you can figure out which ones that your cat likes to do that. So the other thing you can do is you can try to encourage your kitty's hunting instincts. And so you can play with them before you're about ready to feed them. So you want to get one of the little play toys and you can kind of get them going and kind of get their energy up. Because that's what they do right before they hunt, right? They attack and then they hunt and they kill and they eat. And so that's what you want to kind of encourage that too. So when you're transitioning onto a species appropriate diet with your kitties, play with them first, get them going, under the paper bags or whatever you need to do to kind of get their metabolism up and ready to eat. The other thing that you want to do is make sure that as you're removing that kibble, that you're not removing too much kibble and replacing enough of the species appropriate diet. So you need to slowly get going, but at the same time, we don't want to remove a whole bunch of kibble and only give a little bit of food at the time because we want to make sure that they're getting food. You can try a fast on your kitties. Some people will do fasting for a few days. I've heard people fasting all the way up to week or 2 weeks before their cat would eat it. I'm not necessarily suggesting that, and the reason I'm a huge believer in fasting, but I need you as the listener to understand that if you have a diabetic cat or you have a cat who has some medical issues, you want to be really careful with fasting and making sure that you're following guidelines, but following them along with your kitty and your kitty's needs. So those are some little tricks of the trade, making sure that you have room temperature food, making sure that you do some hunting ahead of time with your cat. I do this because I think, play with your cat, get them going, get their energy up, because this is what they would do before a hunt. Making sure that you're doing a little bit at a little bit. If that doesn't work, you can also do stuff like bone broth. Bone broth is a really great thing that you can pour on top of their kibble to start getting them used to the taste of a different flavor. And so you can just pour the liquid on top of their kibble, and that's another way that you can transition your kitties to a species-appropriate diet. And of course, if you have any questions, you can give me a call anytime at the spa. You can also go on our Facebook group page called Millie's House, and we can answer questions there as well for you. But most importantly, I want you to know that it is so very important that our cats eat healthy. They need to be eating healthy in order to live a healthy life. And finding the right species appropriate diet, even if it's a little bit, even if you go to a little bit, is still better than nothing. So I encourage you to try it. I encourage you to look into more information about what you can do to make your cats healthy. I hope this video helps you guys. It's super important to me that I can be seen in your eyes as your pet's life coach. I'm always here to answer questions, and we'll be giving you more and more videos as time goes by. So take care, everybody. Bye.